Hey, what's going on, everybody? Bauer around here. Welcome back to the channel, guys. So this is a video that I probably should have done, weeks and weeks ago. Uh, but things have been really crazy for me lately, kind of up in the air. Just really behind on things is all. But anyhow, what I want to go over are some of the changes that have happened lately, right? With Giants and the updates and all this sort of stuff, right? So everybody's pretty much aware that Giants had put out the 1.9.1 update, which subsequently broke things for us on the mapping end, right? Which happens 100% of the time. So for you guys that are new to this, get used to that, because literally every single time there's an update, something breaks. But it's not all bad. It's usually fixed within a day or two, and in most cases, there's usually a new Giants editor, right? There's usually a new release of the editor that comes out with these updates, so it's good, right? So we get new stuff out of this, and the damage doesn't usually last long. All right, so like I said, there was the 1.9.1 update, and then there was I think there might have been a subsequent patch to fix their boo boo. We had some shader issues along the line, so hopefully everybody was able to resolve those pretty quickly. I did put out two videos, one of them just saying to download the new editor, and that should have fixed most of your issues, and the issues it did not fix were probably resolved through the next video, which was how to fix your shader issues if you had any lingering issues after that update. All right, so like I said, we did get a new editor. Hopefully everybody had some time to get in there and play around and see, what's new, what's different. And hopefully you got things figured out pretty well. All right. So I do want to go over some of those changes today, right? I think most people don't even bother reading the README. They don't really know what's different, what's not. They go in there. If they see something different, hey, that's different. And that's kind of the end of it. All right. So let's go over a few of the things and see what's different, what the good versus the bad, that sort of thing. All right. So I'm going to jump into the README here really quick. And we'll go over this really, really quick. So for the 9.0.4, we added support for the Farming Simulator 22, patch 1.9.1, which kind of goes without saying, right? So we're all aware of that. All right. So we added the terrain occluder LOD feature for improved performance, especially for larger maps. All right, well, especially for larger maps, that sounds great to me. That is actually what broke everything, right? So this terrain occluder, as far as the shaders and stuff like that, things just didn't work so well, but they are all good now. So, right, hopefully everybody's good. All right, and in the long run, this is good news for us, right? So this will help improve performance. It definitely will. All right, so the next thing we have is spline editing improvements. This one, jury's still out on this one, right? So I haven't quite made up my mind. As of right now, I can't see anything that they have done being actual improvements, right? So there are some changes that I could probably live without, and the other changes that they've made, don't really see it as an improvement, but we will get there. I'll show you what I'm talking about in just a little bit. All right, so we added procedural placement feature. This is kind of the elephant in the room right now because nobody knows what the heck is going on with this thing, right? And that also, if you're new to the channel or new to, modding and map making, that is also the Giants way. They explain nothing, absolutely nothing. They can put out the most complicated, intricate, technical gizmo on the market, and they will tell you nothing about it. They just kind of throw you a bone and tell you to figure it out. That's where it goes. It's either you know how to use it already or you don't. Either your psychic abilities are on point or they're not. All right. So that's the way it goes. There's no PDF. There's no white paper. There's no instruction manual. There's no, I don't know, tutorial videos. There is nothing, just radio silence. Right. So it is what it is. Now, I do have a tiny bit of experience with procedural generation and placement, I guess you could say, through other editors like Unity and such. But it's not really helping me much in this respect. All right. I really have some playing around I need to do. and then we'll get things worked out. All right. And I think if you look, through YouTube and stuff like that, you really don't see any other tutorials out there, no websites, nobody's explaining this, probably because really nobody knows how the heck to use it. Just is what it is. Eventually you will see tutorials on this as people get it figured out. All right. So I'm sure there's a handful out there of, these top tier guys, right, that are out there that are, on the cutting edge of everything, that know exactly how to use this. But unfortunately, those are not the same people that are making videos. All right. So anyhow, let's throw that to the side for now. What do we have next? We have added support for multi-selection editing of translation, rotation, scale, and clip distance. They kind of had this before. They just expanded upon it, and I guess that's a good thing. Terrain layer manager improvements. I have personally not seen the improvements. Maybe I'm not looking in the right place. Visually looks exactly the same as it did before. Maybe it's behind the scenes type stuff, right? So I don't know, file management, that sort of thing. Who knows? Fixed terrain wireframe rendering with Vulkan render backend. All right. I don't use Vulkan, so this is meaningless to me. But if you use Vulkan, then there you go. You're welcome. Added mesh LOD debug visualization, if you say so. Terrain wireframe show option keeps terrain wireframe active all the time. This I actually do use, and it does come in handy, and we'll go over that in just a bit. And then with tangent space normals, again, debug visualization, if you say so, or scriptable UI controls. All right, I'll go over that in just a few also. Again, that's kind of neither here nor there. Could sort of live without it, but I guess it's good to have. And then the rendered in viewports flag, again, if you say so. All right, so anyhow, though that's the changelog. So that's what they're telling us they did. All right, so looking at it on paper isn't quite the same as seeing it in person. So let's see what we got here. So, all right, what's first thing first? What is the first thing? Let's have a look there. Again, let's see what we had. Terrain occluder LOD feature. All right, so highlighting your terrain in the scene graph and then looking in your attributes panel, if you highlight the terrain tab, scroll on down and you see a whole mess, right, of new attributes there. Number of occluder LODs, max occluder LOD distance, occluder patch size, blah, 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 all the way down the list. All right. And this is all brand new. This is stuff, obviously, that has something to do with the occluders. I wish I can give you more information on it at this point. I cannot because it's new. I have no experience with it, honestly. Sooner or later, it may start dabbling with it a little bit just to see if anything makes a difference or not. But sometimes you do run into, you run into settings in here that are neither here nor there. You never change them, right? They just work. All right. And this is probably one of those things, like the sun, for example. Like how many people in here, with the exception of jumping up to a larger map, make many changes to their sun? Probably not a whole lot. So it's kind of the same thing here with the terrain occluders. I have a feeling they just work. All right. It's probably under special circumstances, right, that you might find that things don't work and may need to be tweaked a little bit, right? So we're just going to take it for granted that that's going to work the way we want it to. Let's see. Next on the list, we had spline editing. Okay, this one I want to go over because not a big fan, and I'm going to show you why. All right, so let's create a spline here. Let's go create spline. I'm going to Control B. I'm going to plop that down. All right, now I use splines extensively, very, very much. I mean, almost everything I do involves a spline. I like splines. They're fun. All right. So we have this spline here. Let's look at it from this direction. All right. Now, normally, all right, well, let me get this other thing out of the way first before I get into that. So into the right click menu, actually, let me expand this one a little bit. Let's want to move this around so we can see a little bit more what's going on here. So let's stretch this over a little bit. We'll add a point in there, stretch a little bit more, add another point, a little bit more, one more point, a little bit. Okay. So let's stop there before I get all out of hand here and move that up a tiny bit so we can see what's going on. Highlight the whole spline. Here we go. There we go. All right. So in our right click menu, they gave us a few options here. All right. So if we go into show, we have show spline control points. Right. So when we turn that off and on, your blue control vertexes would disappear. All right. So now you only see the orange. All right. So according to them, the blue would be the control points, and then the orange would be the spline endpoints. All right. So maybe, I don't know if you got confused between the blue and the orange, maybe they got in the way. For whatever reason, if you needed to turn those off, you can do that now, right? So, like I said, I really didn't have an issue with this beforehand, but for some reason, that's important now that we be able to do that, right? So spline to endpoints, you can turn off your orange control vertexes, right? Like I said, maybe you just get confused, colorblind. Could be, that could be an issue, right? I'm not judging, I don't know. So, and there could be other reasons, right? But for the way that I use the splines and the control vertexes, yeah, that doesn't mean a whole lot to me, really. So as far as an improvement, nah, not so much. All right, so now with the spline, so I have the spline here. Let's say, for example, I was going to create a roadway. All right. Now, normally I would lay down my spline, just like you see it here. All right. And the way that traffic normally flows, it goes from start to end. That's the direction that the traffic moves. So when I put my spline down, I would put it down like you see here, and I would take the end point, right? And then I would start Control B, and I would move that up, like so, like here. And then from here, I would hit Insert while keeping my left mouse button in, and I could just keep going, right? My cursor would move with that new point. Well, here you can see what in the world is going on here. It did not. It actually stays one behind. So it puts in that new control vertex, but instead of staying on the end point, you're on the new control vertex, right? So that really doesn't work. So from here, you would either have to use your arrow keys, right? Hit the down arrow key to go back up to the end point. Hit Control B again. Okay, then you could insert, and you're not on the end point anymore, so you have to hit the down arrow key. Why? It doesn't work for me. Does not. All right, so now going from the start, all right, so if you want to go in that direction, all right, that works the way you would want it to. So Control B, you insert, just like so, and that's the way you expect your splines to work on both ends. All right, now there's a lot of times where I would absolutely work on both ends of a spline. Well, now you're kind of limited to just the start if you want it to perform, to function like you're used to it, functioning. All right, so now whatever they did on the end of this, yeah, I don't know, Giants, get it together, man, because it's not helpful. As a matter of fact, it's a step back. Right, the splines used to work just fine the way they were, and now you broke them. Thank you, Giants. Now, working with splines is not as much fun as it used to be. All right, so I guess, to make things easier, right? So if you were working from start to end, you can no longer work with the end. So I guess you can just work the opposite direction, and when you're done, hit R, and you can, reverse the ends of your spline, I guess, right? And do it that way. I don't know. If Giants really, really wanted to improve things here, right? Add a function that will let us break a spline in the middle. Like maybe you have a spline that goes from one end of the map completely to the other, and somewhere in the middle of that spline, you want to tie in a road. Well, now you're limited. You have to, you can do it, but you have to duplicate the spline, delete a whole bunch of points. It's a lot of work, right? Why can't we just break that spline into two pieces, tie that new road in, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. All good, right? No, this is what we get. Thank you, Giants. So there you go. There's your spline improvement. This is improved. All right. This is why the world is the way it is these days, right? So, All right, so those are your spline improvements. Let's just keep moving on here. I had enough of that spline thing already. All right, they added the procedural placement features, right? So, like I was saying, this is something that The guys that are really on the cutting edge probably know exactly what's going on here. All right, so if you were to, you can see that we have a new button up in our toolbar here, right? And we can see that that is a terrain procedural placement layer paint mode. Jesus mighty, couldn't think of a shorter name. All right, so click on that. Okay, I was goofing with it, but normally you would get a little pop-up box there that says, you know, you have to go over to window, right? You go over here first, go down to procedural placement, and then you have all sorts of options in here, right? We have mask, scripts, distance matrix, objects, rules. We can put in scripts. We can do all sorts of stuff here, right? But without, you know, some sort of instruction, just a little bit, right? I can read between the lines and figure some things out if you just get the ball rolling, but nope. So this here, basically, I don't know, as far as the Giants editor goes, is the equivalent of a paperweight, right? It's just, it's nice to look at, I guess. I can't even say that. It's not even nice to look at. It's just here. Whatever. Thank you, Giants. That's another improvement, by the way, right? So I hope you get a lot of use out of it. Actually, all right. So what it is, and I'm going to do a video on this at some point, maybe in the near future. I don't know. Things haven't been going as smoothly or quickly as I would like them to. There are programs that exist out there, whether you're using Blender or you're using another form of 3D modeling software, specifically Houdini, right? So if any of these guys know what that is, you know, there's ways to take your height map from GE, right? And you can bring it into this other application and you can do literally everything with it. I mean, Houdini is amazing. It's amazing. There's a gentleman that does work with FS22. I'll do a video on him because that's my new man crush these days. The stuff he's doing is mind blowing, right? But anyhow, what he's doing in there is he's got this 3D application. It's an exact replica of your map, right? As far as your height map and everything like that, it looks exactly the same. And then you can go through and you could add trees. You can put down your roads, fields, even railroad tracks, that sort of thing. And you could re-import that back in the GE. All right. So there's a lot involved with it. I mean, you could run scripts and that sort of thing. And I think, like I said, I'm not 100% on this, but I'm guessing it has something to do, maybe not exactly with Houdini, but along those lines of 3D modeling programs, right? When you export from those programs, that this procedural placement is a way to import those things from those other programs, right? So you can export, you know, different object masks and, you know, placement masks as far as where your trees are going to go and different textures and you name it. So you can kind of export that as this package and use this procedural placement, whether it's the scripting or what have you. You can set that up to work hand in hand with those exported files. And the one thing I can tell you about this, right, even though I don't know what it does or how to use it, right, at full functionality, right? And now I'm not sure if it's on its own, it's going to work this way. Like I said, you might need to export from other programs, but it's extremely powerful, right? If it's being used correctly, if it's being used the right way, a very, very, very powerful tool. Blows anything away if it's being used to its fullest potential. Like I said, right now, it's just there, right? So if you know how to use it, by all means, contact me in some way, shape, or form. Normally, stuff like this requires at least an afternoon of just goofing around, or sometimes even a whole weekend or longer of just goofing around, trying to get to the bottom of it. And I really haven't had that kind of time lately. So, yeah. Is what it is. All right, so let's move past that. Added support for multi-selection editing. All right, so we kind of had this to begin with, right? Sorta. If you look here, right? So let me pick a house or something here, whatever. Pick something. All right. Let me make sure I got more than one something here. We got this. I'm trying to find two things that are fairly close together. You know what? Something that feels like it's missing there. isn't it? Yes, there is something missing. There should be a building here. What happened to that building? So it's this place right here. Hey, how did you get down there? All right, well, whoa, where am I? Oh, did that get all the way over there? My goodness gracious. All right, let's bring you back where you belong. I have a feeling that you just slid over there. So let's slide you back like so. Yep, look at that. Fits perfectly. How do you like that? Don't know what I was doing last time. I was goofing around with this, but all right, let's get you back here. There we go. Get back into your home. All right, so where was I before I got off on that little tangent there? All right, I was picking more than one object. So we had that object there, right? Maybe the one, nope, we'll pick these two. All right, so looking over my attributes on the right-hand side of my screen, right, when I have a single object selected, we got to translate X, Y, and Z values. If I pick more than one object, all right, so you can see that my X, my Z, and my Y all turn to mixed, right? And this goes for a few different things, right? So now you can affect the translate X, Z, and Y in this case, right? In other cases, it might be the rotation, like the translate Y, right? Doesn't say mixed because they're at the same Y level. So, and the same thing with the rotate X, right? So if they weren't, they would say mixed, right? So if I pick one of these, turn it a little bit, and then reselect that other one, probably my rotation's also going to say mixed, which it does, right? So there you go. So that's what that does, right? So it's useful, very useful, right? We never had this option before. Now the thing is, like when it comes to like what I would like to do is to be able to highlight like both of these at once without putting them in a group and just being able to move it, which doesn't work. You know, you're only going to be able to move the highlighted one. Now, if you use like say the translate X, right? So if we use either put a value in here manually or just use the slider, there you go. See, we can move both of them at once. Oh boy, what do I got going? This is probably how that whole thing ended up. Look at, see now they're both gone. Oh yeah. Okay, remind me not to save when we're done here. Yep, can't get them back. All right, so use that one carefully because your objects might just end up disappearing. Let's see what happened to them. Where are they at? Oh, there's the shack. Oh my goodness. Oh, we're all the way over on that end now. Oh boy. Ay. But anyhow, so do you get the idea of anyhow what's going on there, right? So that you can actually, you know, affect more than one object at a time when you're working with these things. And it will come in handy, right? So as you guys are working on things, you're going to figure out, you know, that this is going to come in extremely handy if you want to, you know, be able to, you know, rotate or translate or whatever, you know, work scale on more than one object at a time. It's going to be really, really nice. Okay. Haven't really used it much as of right now, but it is nice. Very, very nice. All right. Terrain layer management improvements. Like I said, nothing really looks different in the terrain layer manager. It just all looks the same to me. So I'm just going to take their word for that. What else? Let me go through this really quick and see what else we might. More scriptable UI and a wireframe. All right, we'll go over that really quick. Close that down. All right, so the wireframe, what I like about this, right? So before, this is the only option we had right here is the wireframe. All right, so unfortunately, it put everything into a wireframe. All your trees, all your buildings, everything's in a wireframe, right? And then even the ground has this white look to it. So it's helpful, but it wasn't the easiest thing to continue working and have this highlighted, right? So if we keep this on shaded, right, and we go down to show and then terrain wireframe, right? So now our terrain is in the wireframe, but we can still see our original terrain textures. Our buildings and our trees and everything else are still shaded. All right, now why is this even important? All right, so I use this a lot, like just looking out there, I can see all my terrain changes, right? A lot easier than I could with the naked eye. I can see, you know, any dips and hills and stuff like that. So if we were to create a hill right here, right, just create one in the middle of the map here. Hey, see, what things are not working for me today for some reason. Oh, I see. You know what? I'm looking at that. Ay, ay, ay. I'm looking at that little red circle there, and I'm like, why is that not getting bigger? Well, here it is. It's just massive. That's not even my, there you go. There's my brush. Oh, Bauer, some days you are just so special. All right, so let me make a little bump here in the middle now that I figured out how to work things. All right, so as we're going here, we're creating, God, man, I can go a little faster than that, can it? There we go. All right, so now we got a bump. All right, so using our mesh, right? See, look at that. It's so much easier to tell what's going on there, right? And in this, even more so when you have foliage and grasses and stuff like that included in there, right? Then it's much easier to visualize what's going on with your terrain. Okay, so now say if we look at it from this angle here, right? Let's pick an angle where we can still see. I can see the bumpity bumps going on there, right? Let's get us out of that mode. And then we're going to go back to our regular terrain. Now keep an eye on that bumpy area right there, right? All right. See what I mean? Much easier to visualize what's going on with your terrain here from where I'm looking. Now I'm half blind, so you got to take that with a grain of salt. But man, it almost disappears, but it's there, right? So it's just a hell of a lot harder to see, you know, without that terrain grid. So I use that pretty much. I would say that's good. That's an improvement, right? You know, a much better improvement than whatever you call they did with the splines. That more like a train wreck. But anyhow, I'm not judging, right? If they say it's an improvement, then damn it, it's an improvement. Don't. Anyhow, all right. So what was the other one? We had that, and we had, I don't know, something else. Oh, okay, yeah. If you go up to scripts, right? So let's go up to scripts. Let's go to map. No, let's go to terrain. And how about paint terrain by spline? Let's try that one. Ooh, look at that. Very nice. All right, so if any of these guys are familiar with like the Farmer Boy scripts, right, we should be by now because, you know, I really am a fan of their work, and, you know, I teach you guys how to use it, right, because it's useful. Well, they were kind of a step ahead in this respect because they had already moved, kind of like they're doing here. They put everything in the user attributes window, right? So you can just fill everything in. You didn't have to go into the script itself and get confused by things. And right. So now they just kind of present it to you in a way that, you know, these are the numbers you need to fill in. Don't worry about everything else. Right. So it lessens the chance that you're going to break anything or get curious and just screw something up because, you know, you wanted to play around in there. Right. These are the numbers you need to change. Go for it. All right. So like I said, I really think Farmer Boys were a step ahead. All right. So I think Giants, nah, I'm not going to say that. But anyhow, this is kind of along those same lines. Now, all of the Farmer Boy scripts still work that way through the user attributes, but I'd be willing to bet that somewhere down the road, probably not far down the road, you can expect to see your Farmer Boy script show up like this now, right? When you run the scripts, this little pop-up box is going to come up and you're going to be able to punch in some numbers. It's nice, useful. I still like seeing the whole script. So it's, for me, it's neither here nor there, but it is nice, right? So it definitely is. Especially if you're new to this, right? You're a beginner. That's something that, you know, you don't need to see the rest of the script. You really don't. All right. So over like on the attribute side, right-hand side of my screen, we have just a couple more things going on inside here. Let's have a quick look through here. We have, the presets. That's a nice one, right? So this, I wish this is useful. And I actually wish they would do this with like texture setups and stuff like that, because, you know, not just the brush, and perhaps we'll see that somewhere down the road. But right here under the brush settings, you have a little, you know, drag down box for presets, right? So maybe if you have a particular preset, right? So maybe, you know, your opacity is a little bit lower. I don't know, hardness, some, right? Maybe in the same range, right? Maybe everything is kind of the same range. It's on the lower end, right? Maybe you have a particular brush that you use just for doing roadways, right? It's slower moving. It doesn't, it doesn't affect the, the terrain features as much. Like I said, it's really soft effect. You only use it in certain areas, right? So you can go ahead and click this add, and you can name it roadways. You can name it favorite, minimum, whatever you want, right? Give it a name that you know what it's going to be, all right? And then next time, when you're switching over from really aggressive, brush strokes from maybe making mountains or something like that. And then in a blink of an eye, you want to switch over and do some touch up on your roads. You don't have to, fuss with the sliders anymore. Hit your presets, pick your roadway or whatever you named it, and you're off to the races, right? There you go. So I do like that feature. Very, very nice. All right, moving out a little bit. We have what do we have? Limit to texture. We had limit to texture since the last update. Now we have limit to foliage and limit to foliage state. This is awesome, right? So when limit to texture, that was a game changer. When that came out from, oh my God, if you guys were doing any kind of work in FS19, you learned to appreciate that one quick, fast, and in a hurry. No doubt about it. All right. So, yeah, it just, man, painting was, it was brutal in FS19 and earlier. All right. But this just made things so much better. And the limit to foliage and limit to foliage state makes things even better. All right. So I've started using it, and I didn't use it as much in the beginning, but now I wanted to make some changes. Right. So I did a few things, on my newest map that I'm working on. Looked okay, but maybe I could do something different. So I was able to affect my texture, around a particular foliage and foliage state, right? So maybe deco foliage, and maybe it was like long dry grass or something like that, right? And I could change the textures just underneath those areas. It was amazing, worked great, right? So I'm a fan of that. This little checkbox here for block procedural, we're gonna see that come up here and there until we figure out what the hell is going on with that tool. It just is what it is. All right, and kind of think that was it. We got the same thing down here for foliage layer painting, limit to texture, limit to foliage. And again, down here, we have a whole separate section for procedural placement painting, procedural placement area, block mask. I had that set up. It didn't really do what I wanted it to do, right? So I can paint and really nothing's happening here. I actually really don't have it set up anymore. I had a mesh in there. I think I had a texture. I don't know if I had the mesh actually. And I had a foliage, so I know the foliage was in there. But I deleted it all. I need to go back in there and kind of goof around and see what's going on. Like I said, I've been playing around with it, and as I get things worked out, I will absolutely, most certainly do a video to let you know what is going on inside of there. But for now, like I said, that is just a mystery. That's one of Earth's greatest mysteries right now. What the hell is going on with that procedural placement tool? All right, so how many of those things did you guys know? How many did you not know, right? Did you figure all that stuff out? Am I missing anything? Maybe there's things that I don't know. Yeah, like I said, I've been so busy lately. I've only really scratched the surface on some of this stuff. I do have another map that I've been working on a little bit, trying to get in a little bit of playtime when I can. Man, I wish it was more. I really do. But it is what it is. Some weeks I have more time than others. And right now, this is just one of those weeks where too much going on. Alrighty. So let me see. Anything else that I wanted to add there? No, I don't think so. Do you guys have any video ideas, anything like that you want me to do videos on? Let me know. I'll try to get those out there. I am kicking around what I want my next videos to be. I do have a few more series lined up. I'm not sure how I want to approach them, when I want to start them. If I want to get out other smaller individual tutorial videos, I don't know. Help me. Right. So if you have some ideas, throw them out there. I am more than willing to listen. Right. Anyhow, I guess I'm going to leave it at that. Right. So with that being said, that's right. I'm Bauer Brown, and I will see you on the next one.